I'm Matt Hatton from Transformer Insights. We're here at the Things Conference in Amsterdam. We're talking all things IoT and LoRaWAN. I'm joined by Brandon Satrom of Blues Wireless. Brandon, welcome. First off, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about you. Tell us a bit about Blues Wireless and who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. So my name is Brandon Satrom. I'm the Vice President of Experience Engineering at Blues Wireless, and we are an industrial IoT company that's focused on making developer-focused, developer-friendly cellular IoT connectivity so that customers can actually deliver solutions and really fulfill the promise that's been prevalent in this space for so long. So,
Absolutely. You were speaking yesterday on the subject of, and I've got it written down, was speed up or die, and then there was quite a lot of other text after that. But explain to me what you were talking about in your speed up or die session.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're big believers in the promise of this space and the billions of connected devices, potentially trillions, of this idea of everything being connected. But we also recognize that there's a lot of things that unintentionally or otherwise that we vendors tend to do to perpetuate slowing developers down, whether it's proliferating standards or focusing too much on wars between different wireless radio access technologies and things like that. And the talk was really about sort of calling out some of those things that we do intentionally or otherwise to slow each other down, and some things that we believe at Blues are really important to focus on to speed customers up, to actually accelerate developers. And we use that word accelerate a lot around the company with customers because that's really important to us. We feel like it's taking 2 to 5 years for IoT projects to be delivered, and 75% of projects take twice as long as originally planned. We should look inside ourselves to find out what's actually happening and why, and then find ways to eliminate that complexity and really focus on how we speed developers up.
Yeah, because developers is a big focus of Blues Wireless, right? I mean, that's in the DNA, is to help that particular group, and this is a very developer-friendly kind of an environment. The LoRaWAN ecosystem tends to be quite developer-friendly. So you're finding a lot of synergy, a lot of common areas for discussion when you're talking with people at the show here?
Yeah, we really are, because, like you said, there are developers all over this show that are really hungry to find practical, simple ways to solve the problems that they have in mind. And that's one of the things that I really love about the show, about the Things Industries, about the work that they do, is that it's really focused on the solutions that developers are building. The hardware is a piece of that. The wireless connectivity is a piece of that, but it's really about how a customer manifests the thing that they really are trying to use connectivity for to solve a problem, to allow connectivity to do something that wasn't possible without it. And there's so much of that at the show. And it really starts with developers being able to take an idea and find a tangible, simple way to make it happen, to deploy that pilot, to get the prototype done, and then take the next step one at a time.
The next step is an interesting question, though. Your tendency has been to focus more on the developer side of things. How different is that from some of the deployments which might be millions, billions of devices? Is it a different discipline, or are there things that can be ported across from one to the other?
There are absolutely things that can be brought one to the other. And that's actually one of the reasons why when we first started Blues, we focused on that connectivity module piece and not so much building a dev board ecosystem, because we have found in our experience that if you go too much into the dev kit ecosystem, you give a developer something that they feel like they have to restart over again when they do go to scale. Like they get the 100 unit pilot and with a Raspberry Pi or something else, and they're like, all right, I guess I've got to start over, do it with a real microcontroller. Yeah. And we really believe that it is possible to deploy with those devices, but if you really focus on connectivity, we can allow a customer to use the Raspberry Pi, to use an Adafruit Feather device. We love those devices. And then when it comes to scale, the connectivity module is still there. They still have that thing that they can build from and go. And so that transition from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000, there's always those breakpoints where there's a decision that has to be made. But again, going on to speeding up and simplicity, if one less decision is there on the table for you, that's an easier path for you to actually get to that scale deployment.
Completely makes absolute sense. What have you seen here at the Things Conference that's interesting? Because you may well be a newbie to this event. I don't know. I couldn't say, but I'm guessing possibly you are. What's been interesting for you here?
It is the first time. I think one of the things that's really interesting is that the density of professionals that are very interested in solving problems in this space. I've been to a lot of shows. I've done a lot of work with developers over the past several years, and you go to many events where you get sort of a percentage that's interested in IoT solution building. You get larger events like Embedded World, where it's just all across the map in terms of level of interest. But the concentration of people that are like, I have a problem that I'm solving, or a product that I'm building, or something along those lines, where there's just so many people that are coming together. We have lots of conversations where we don't have to do the 5 minutes in the booth of feeling each other out before we talk about the thing. There's specific questions. I've got this thing I'm building. I want to talk to you about it. Tell me what you do. And that's been really refreshing to see. This is a great event and a great community that the Things team has put together.
So it's a very knowledgeable bunch of people who are at this show. I have to ask though, Blues Wireless, what you do is cellular, right? Or yeah, I'm going to say it pretty much entirely what you do is in the cellular world. What's the interest in LoRaWAN?
It's a great question. So part of it is a desire to just level up the entire industry. That's one of the things that I talked about in my keynote yesterday, was that this idea of sort of choosing between, this connectivity option is always the right approach versus this connectivity option. We're really big believers that cellular fits in a lot of use cases. LoRaWAN fits in a lot of use cases. Cellular may not, maybe the backhaul it may not. But really, if we're focused on helping speed up customers, we want to point them towards the thing that makes sense for their use case. And if it's cellular, great. We feel like we're really good at that. But if it's not, we want to build relationships with partners and with other companies that can actually do those kinds of things. And so we're big supporters in this space in general. And this is I think this is one of the best examples of where a community is formed around IoT, even though it's specific to LoRaWAN in many cases. There's interest in just moving the space forward. And we do have a product, actually a LoRa product that we just released a couple of months ago. It is a sort of our approach on using the note card with LoRa. So it's not a LoRaWAN product. It's basically adding the product we call Sparrow. It's adding these devices to an existing note card-based application. And part of the reason we built that was because we had customers that liked our model. They wanted to use cellular, but they were looking for a lower per unit cost on the connectivity piece. And that's really where LoRa shines, right? You can put a $1 to $2 radio in a chip versus a $20+ cellular or Wi-Fi module. And so you give customers that hub and spoke model, but we wanted to build that as a developer kit, not as an alternative to LoRaWAN, but as more of like, if you're exploring this space, if you're interested in LoRa, we have something that you can kind of start prototyping, and then, again, still supporting this ecosystem is a big important thing for us.
But that might evolve, presumably. I mean, you'll maintain a watching brief on the LoRaWAN space. Do you think evolution of products for Blues Wireless in that space?
It may. It's really going to be driven by our customers. I mean, one of the things that we're big believers is in allowing our customers sort of lead where we go as a company based on the problems they're trying to solve, based on where we see the best fit right now. But, we started the company because of this belief that Ray Ozzie had around simplifying cellular IoT connectivity and low power focused cellular IoT, which we believe wasn't really a thing before 4 to 5 years ago. And to be in that space was driven by really meeting that need for customers. And so who knows, we'll actually we'll see where the space goes.
Absolutely. One other thing I want to touch on, one of the big areas that we look at the moment is around this idea of cross-optimization of the various different elements in the IoT stack. And that's been a big area for you. Are you seeing that from customers saying, you know what, my device doesn't really work that well with my connectivity. The protocols I'm using aren't really that appropriate for the application I'm using, and all various things in between. How do I get data into the cloud? How do I do all of these things, but in an optimized way, particularly relevant in constrained environments, in the ones that you're working in. So we've got a lot of love for the stuff that Blues Wireless is doing in that combination of hardware and connectivity. But I'm interested in if you're seeing that as a big driver.
We are, in terms of cost optimizing, driving the need for the application in the first place. We do see a fair amount of that. And actually, one of the things that we learned during COVID was we actually didn't see a slowdown in terms of customer interest, because if customers couldn't go to the places they needed to go to service equipment, this idea of adding connectivity became a no-brainer, because it enables me to do something I couldn't do before. And so rather than being seen as a nice to have in certain applications, it started to be seen as critical. And we've seen that continue. And And the cost optimization in many cases has been an extension of some of that. Like customers actually looking for what's the best way I can add a module without blowing out my BOM cost or something along those lines. And we do see some of that really more on the cloud side, frankly. I think one of the things that we have observed is that customers are really interested in finding the best cost optimized model to get cloud connectivity into their ultimate repositories, whether it's a hyperscaler like AWS or Azure or something along those lines, and really finding the best IoT solutions that allow them to cheaply, safely, securely get the data from their devices into their cloud applications without adding yet another multi-year subscription, another high dollar contract, something along those lines. And so we actually have priced our product on the cloud side around this idea that we want to grow as our customers are successful. So rather than sort of trying to take up money up front, it becomes a matter of like, as you consume the service, then you're paying a fee, but paying a fee based on that, but not signing up in advance of actually being successful. And that's what we've seen. Customers they really love this idea of, if we, betting on a platform that will grow with them, as opposed to, if they don't really know how it's going to turn out yet in production, having to make some of those financial decisions up front.
Fantastic. Brandon Satrom from Blues Wireless, thank you very much. Great. Blues Wireless, we love these guys. So next up, we'll be talking to Orkan from the Things Industries. We'll be back in about 5 minutes to do that.